I just want to spend so much time with them. So that's why we also
Y'all were jamming. I think that's the best thing we've done.
Hey, that means a lot. Thank you.
I know
You know my brain. Waldo.
I think we're doing it. I'm sorry. No. The thing is, it's just funny because I just I don't care.
I have no idea what I mean.
Yeah, but it's not.
Oh my God. But it's been really too much. The last bottled drink with a lizard on it. Yeah, Selby. It does look like that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I think 6, 7 is like right around there, but I don't want you to just.
Oh,
I know.
What time we at? All right. Cool. Let's go ahead and kind of get this show on the road. I want to thank Prep to Your Door once again for the delicious food. If you haven't tried it, it's over there. Grab some. Use your fingers. I don't care. It's good. It's good for you. All locally sourced, local farms. They're wonderful, wonderful people. Trying to go zero waste, which is an interesting, topic because anything that we put in our bodies, especially around lunchtime, has to be healthy for you, right? And that's the whole point of the topics that we have for Lunch and Learn. So welcome to another installation. I can't tell you how happy I am right now. This is cool. This is our biggest turnout yet. A lot of wonderful folks have been here many a times and some new ones here, so I'm very grateful for it. Today's topic is NAD, NAD+. It's a wonderful, wonderful regenerative vitamin. And because you're at the beautiful MSW Lounge, you have the ability to get a shot of anything you want up there front with NAD in it for $50, and you get an IV of whatever you want with NAD for $130 today because we love you. Now, as far as NAD goes, I'm glad everyone turned out to, because it's kind of an important topic when it comes to vitamin supplementation and it comes to just nutrition. Anything that we preach here is going to be focused on nutrition, and it's more importantly self-improvement, right? So it's funny when we talk to people about certain things that they should be doing in their life. It's with heart, right? It's like if this was a loved one because loved ones come here, what would you recommend to them, right? And because we have the resources, it's almost like I'm in a bubble because I just say, like, you would want to do this as much as you can. And that's how I feel about NAD. NAD plus is a derivative of a B vitamin. And it's very important because if you know your B vitamins, you need them on a daily basis. Every time that you eat green leafy vegetables, you're getting some B vitamins. Every time you eat avocado, you get some B vitamins. But they do different things for the body. And the great thing about the types of resources that you get from food is you get a lot of nutrients from it, right? But the thing is, you don't get all your nutrients from your food. And I've had this topic on many conversations recently this week. In fact, when I was reviewing labs, people might be eating like 5 avocados a day, but it's not converting to omega-3 DHA, which is the fat that your brain is made of, what it runs off of. So if you think about it, you say you're keto and you want to eat a lot of fat, right? Well, what's the healthiest fat you can imagine? It's monounsaturated fat. That's the healthiest fat you can find. It's avocado fat. That avocado, in my mind, is the perfect food. It's amazing. Even the seed has a cyanide derivative that only targets cancerous toxic cells for destroying it. Incredible. It's a derivative very similar to that of the apricot seed, which is vitamin B17. Just FYI, if you ever want to go down the rabbit hole. Now, the other thing when it comes to the avocado is that it has a lot of nutrients in it, like antioxidants, right? It's one of the reasons I love turmeric. So when we talk about antioxidants, especially in green leafy vegetables, they come with the B vitamins as well. So B vitamins do certain things, antioxidants do other things. NAD is a derivative of both of them. They kind of do both. It's a B vitamin and it's an antioxidant at the same time, right? And if you believe the idea that you should put something in your body that will truly benefit health, then NAD is right up there with it. Now, I will tell you, when it comes to NAD, the best way to get it is through an IV or a shot. It's just hands down. When it comes to the absorption rate, many of us know gut issues can be a big thing for us. And if you have gut issues, it's going to be hard to absorb your food anyway, or let alone the nutrients. If you bypass that, you get an IV or a shot, it goes straight to the bloodstream for almost, and I say, maximum absorption, which is great. So when you get an IV of NAD or a shot of NAD, what you're doing is an incredible response. When I say NAD is a regenerative vitamin, this is the technical way that it's made up of. Vitamin B3 is niacin, right? Everyone talks about B vitamins, a very important one. All your B vitamins go into something called your TCA or Krebs cycle. It produces energy. It breaks down glucose and produces ATP. That's your main source of energy. You want to know how you function, how you're lethargic, how you're tired throughout the day, it's ATP. As we get older, we become deficient in hormones, but we become deficient in ATP as well. Why? Because that's our cellular currency of energy. You're tired, you need some ATP. Boom, take this drink. Slenderita is great, a source of ATP. NAD is a great source of ATP, but it's on a different level. I love how it's on a pedestal right now because there's a ratio of ATP to NAD in the body. That's how it works. The B vitamin of niacin has a derivative that becomes NAD that becomes this ultimate, almost like check balance system with the main source of energy in our body. So without enough NAD in our bodies, in theory, we have enough ATP circulating. So think about that as we get older. Oxidative stress is the #1 thing that's going to bring you down from a cellular level. It's known as inflammation. If you want to know the layman's term, it's known as stress. Stress equals disease. Any type of disease that stays around long enough turns into inflammation. Inflammation turns into chronic problems. You name it. Every single cause of disease is stress, physical, mental, and chemical. So when I pride myself on having Prep to Your Door here at this lunch, I pride myself on the idea that I know there's no chemicals that are going into your wonderful bodies that is going to contribute to all the crap that could possibly happen. So I don't want to give and fuel the fire, but I want to remove and try to help and replenish and establish a new way of functioning. That's the whole point of whatever we do here in MSW. That's the whole point of Slenderella. The idea is that NAD incorporates something that is very hard to find, but at the same time, if you understand it, you can do it on a daily basis, even if you don't have the access to the IV. Now, go back to the B3. So the B3 comes from tryptophan. Now, you know tryptophan is an amino acid. Amino acids are wonderful. We have hundreds of amino acids, okay? But there's essential ones that really we should focus on, the basic ones, the ones that you find in your protein mix, right? If you find those like valine, isolene, you have arginine, you have aspartame, which is, I think, it's spelled a different way, but you have essential amino acids that eventually turn into protein, which essentially go and help contribute to your muscles, contribute to your DNA. All of this now is a genetic thing that goes on with our bodies. It just functions. You breathe, you pee, you poop, you do all that on your own, right? Your body just knows when to respond, when to wake up. There's cellular things going on. When you have tryptophan, it goes into your body to form a B vitamin that eventually breaks off and forms NAD. And then eventually you have enough NAD to supply your body for ATP production. That's our bodies. That's part of it, right? Because our systems are a car. That's one part of the system. That's a whole system that underlies everything, right? But the cool thing about it is, if you understand the cellular level of what it does, then essentially it becomes a part of your normal thing, right? I keep repeating that. NAD on a cellular level goes into your mitochondria. It goes into your nucleus, right? So every one of the trillions of cells that we're producing on a daily basis at this very moment, each one of those cells has NAD in it. And it's incredible because we're one of the few animals that actually needs NAD but can produce NAD on our own. Plants really can't do it, right? They have a whole other system, chlorophyll and all that, right? We have ATP that we need to make off of protein and DNA and amino acids. So we need the right kind of stuff to fuel it. So if you're not eating your turkey, if you're not eating meat, I hate to say it, you might be deficient in tryptophan unless you get it from another source. Those are the little things that I look at when it comes to nutritional deficiency, that I don't really care if you're not getting enough magnesium, because I know magnesium is a cofactor to make sure that the B3 converts over to NAD, right? That's what happens with everything. It's a contributing kind of conjuncture to where if I'm giving you something for like a nutrient, say, I want to make sure that cofactors are there so the tryptophan eventually converts over to niacin, that eventually converts over to NAD, that eventually converts over to detoxing that mitochondria, right? Because remember, when it goes and it turns into NAD, NAD is this little compound that goes into our cells, goes into the mitochondria, in the nucleus, where all of our DNA is. Everything that we've ever been designed to do is in these cells, and they're specific to you. So what happens through oxidative stress, they go in and they tear these cells up. So all these healthy, beautiful cells, these trillions of cells that we make on a daily basis, NAD is going into these cells, kicking out ATP to keep you healthy, to keep you going, to withstand your 6-day workouts, whatever you're doing, you're fasting, right? That's what NAD's doing to promote ATP production. So if you're vegan, I don't know what to say. You might want to look at the sources of your tryptophan. And I love plant-based because plant-based is the way to go, in my opinion, right? Because if you can look at exogenous sources of types of nutrients, you can get algae and get DHA, right? We've talked about soy and we've talked about tempeh, and those healthy choices can actually be wonderful sources of good protein and other types of wonderful macros, right? Which is great. The problem is I don't know where your food's coming from. I know where my food's coming from, right? That's the cool thing about it. But when it comes to the genetic aspect, I can see what's going on with all of y'all, right? And I see a trend. What happens over time, even standing in our fluorescent light, we're going to be depleted of all the nutrients that we've ever stored up in our body in order to function. And that's one of those things that we become deficient in. It affects our brain. More importantly, it affects our entire body, right? But let me talk about the brain for 1 second. The NAD compound goes into the brain and it produces something called sirtuin. Sirtuin is a compound reaction that basically protects you against cognitive decline. And if you think about people who have cognitive decline, what does that affect? That affects Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, bipolar, schizophrenia. You can imagine every single person that has depression or anxiety, right? A person that has short-term memory, long-term memory loss, people that basically can't remember that thing they did 2 seconds ago. It's incredible, right? Because those little things add up after a while. And I'm not trying to scare you, but I know too much. I know way too much. I see all your labs and I know what goes on. And what's incredible about it is we are a byproduct of our environment, which is incredible because you can literally go look at cancer and say, if whatever you put in your body is going to be a byproduct eventually down the road, like NAD, what kind of crap are you putting in your body? Because if MD Anderson is saying 50% of all cancers can be reduced by just your lifestyle alone, what the hell do we have wrong in this country? What is the problem? We have problems with sugar and we have problems with processed ingredients. The chemicals and preservatives that go into food products are essentially the tipping point to anything that's going to go wrong with someone if they have a genetic issue. You mix an inflammation from a byproduct we can't break down, and all of a sudden you have the ability to fuel something like degeneration. It happens to be to where if you're fortunate enough, and I say this very loosely, to have brain genetic problems, guess where the NAD migrates to where it becomes deficient? The brain. If you have liver problems, endocrine problems, gut problems, if you have diabetes issues in your family, could it migrate to those troubled areas? It very well could be. Because I'll tell you this, there is a genetic test that you can check. It's called ApoE. ApoE is a genetic test that every one of us will have. Every one of us has this gene, and the technical term for it is actually how you metabolize cholesterol. But the regenerated part of it is saying that when you have this gene that's mutated, you're at a higher risk for cognitive decline. And you've heard me list all those diagnoses. Put that aside, just cognitive decline. So when that happens, this is how I look at it. I don't look at the individual. I just see what the genes are telling me. A normal variant is ApoE3E3. Normal variant. 9% risk of Alzheimer's development. Normal variant. E3, E4, 30%. E4, E4, 50% risk. Out of the people sitting in this room, I would probably say there's at least one or two of you that have the E4, E4. 50% at risk. Not trying to scare you, but I'm just saying here's the reality. If you don't eat healthy food, breathe healthy air, get healthy light, get healthy sleep, drink healthy water, get healthy flexibility in your spine, are you laying the foundation for a disease to occur down the road? And it's incredible because what's actually going to be the issue down the road when we're really dealing with issues in this country? Diabetes and Alzheimer's. It's the same thing, folks. Why? Because inflammation builds accumulatively all over the body. NAD goes into your cells and literally kicks out toxins from that processed crap. NAD literally goes into your cells, kicks out ATP, but while it's there, you know what it does? It cleans house like a bouncer. Say, hey, you got a little bit of aspartame over there, let's kick it out. Aspartame, folks, MSG, we're talking processed sugar, we're talking, maybe BPA, maybe, I don't know. It's got to get to the brain first. It's got to bypass the blood-brain barrier, which is the hardest thing to do. Medicines don't even do that. But the blood-brain barrier is something that protects the brain from things going in and out, almost like pathogens. And what happens with leaky gut syndrome is that all your food and your chemicals that you ingest go in there, and it pokes holes through all the flooring of your gut and creates this hole that your food goes through, and it goes straight down, and it doesn't get processed and broken down like it should. So when that happens, it goes into the bloodstream directly as this foreign substance. The body thinks, what the heck's going on with it, and tries to attack it, thinks it's in inflammatory mode. That's how inflammation starts. How many people have eaten fast food at one point in their life, and you had these chemicals go into your body, and they're still causing havoc if you're continuing to do this? Leaky gut is the same thing as leaky brain, because the same type of material that lines the gut, that same membrane lines the brain. And that's the blood-brain barrier that protects things like bacteria or even BPA or aspartame into getting into our brain cells. Someone that eats sugarless gum, drinks sugarless diet soda, does not exercise, smokes, and probably stays up all night binging on Netflix. I pray that they don't have that variant E4, E4. Because you just see it. Is it a ticking time bomb? Am I pouring gasoline on the fire if I go under fluorescent light all day and never go outside barefoot with my shirt off to get some beautiful solar energy? We were not designed to be inside all day. And the idea that if you look at someone who's weird in the park, who's walking around barefoot with their shirt off, you think they're weird. I'm thinking that guy's healthy. That's awesome. And they're doing handstands on top of that, so they're fit. Like, that's cool. Yeah, there's half of the people in the room do this, right? So if you think about it, you're doing things on a daily basis to protect yourself. And the most simplest things in the world could be exactly what you're already putting in your body. Recognizing the idea that it can affect you genetically, nutritionally. NAD is one of those incredible things to where if you promote longevity, how long are we really talking about with life? Because the truth is, let's say you avoid all that crap. Let's say you do live the healthy Austin lifestyle, right? Vegan, plant-based, every single restaurant I go to, I can have gluten-free everything. It's incredible, right? Vegan ice cream in Texas, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And when you have people who are that conscious about what they're doing to their body, they pay attention, they do research, they listen, they say, tell me about NAD. Well, let me tell you about NAD. If your theory was to live to 120, I would not laugh at you. I would say, what are you doing on a daily basis right now to get to that point? Because that's the honest truth. I do not believe we shall pass only because we accept it as the inevitable. It's only because we haven't figured it out.
That's where we're headed with regenerative medicine. PRP injections, plasma injections, stem cells, exosomes. We did our first exosomes treatment here a couple weeks ago.
Woo!
Stem cells from a fetal umbilical cord. I don't care what your ethics say about it. I'm a man of science. When you have the ability to regenerate cells on a healthy level to where you know you're doing wonderful things to breathe life into these beautiful cells, why would you not promote that? And when it comes to the hierarchy of things that you could ever do for your body, food is obviously your medicine, right? It's your basis, right? But what else are you doing besides, drinking good water, good sleep, all that good stuff? NAD. Get NAD somehow in your diet, right? Get some kind of regenerative system going on your body if you want to live with quality of life as you get older. I don't accept the idea that as I get older, I'm going to be hooked up to a bunch of tubes. I don't want to be that life. That doesn't seem like a good life. If I'm 90 years old and I'm jumping off something, because I was sprinting, hopefully I wasn't running from the cops, but if it was running because I was in a race or something and it just done, I'll be happy. Because I did it my way, man. I was able to stay and be healthy. People say I look young already. I think, I got a few gray hairs, but why can't I be doing handstands when I'm 70 and 80 years old? Why can't I be doing sprints in Silker Park when I'm 95? Jack LaLanne used to do that to his 95. You think he lived to 95, 96, still doing push-ups. He said the easiest thing that I've ever heard when it comes to diet. If man made it, spit it out. That was his number one rule for diet. I've never heard the most simplest thing ever explained. If it came from nature, you're probably okay. But here's what you can get from nature for more of a medical kind of approach. Resveratrol is found in some of the wonderful foods you eat. And guess what? That produces NAD. Turmeric produces NAD. Going back to resveratrol. Resveratrol is in grapes. Okay? It's a lot of citrus foods. So yes, wine is good for you, but God bless moderation, people. And if it's sugar in the wine, that's not healthy. The sulfates in there alone are probably not going to do it. But if you think about resveratrol, you extract it, you take it on a daily basis from some kind of citrus fruit, then you're good on that sense. That produces a little bit of NAD, right? You can actually get turmeric as a spice and put it all over everything, but black pepper with it. And I don't know how many, this is maybe 13 or 14 we've done, how many times I brought up turmeric. It's like I love avocado, I love turmeric. Put turmeric on avocado. Just do it. With black pepper. It can produce more NAD. It's great because it's one of those little things that you now know every time you reach for a grape, a melon, a citrus deal, but you also have, a little bit of turmeric that you put on your eggs. Eggs. And if you put on your salad, put it with the black pepper and all that, it's going to absorb. The black pepper helps turmeric absorb 1,000 times more, some ridiculous number. And it's the curcumin that's the extract as that you really want. Because curcumin or resveratrol do two separate things, which is interesting. It'll go up into the brain, and it does pass the blood-brain barrier, but it doesn't do it by leaky holes. It just does it naturally because it can cross the blood-brain barrier. And what turmeric and resveratrol do is two separate things. They kind of do similar things, but two separate things. The resveratrol goes and directly stimulates sirtuin levels, which is a form of what NAD does, right? Okay. Whole coffee fruit extract does the same thing. So you're welcome in your drinks. The caffeine that comes from the boost is all whole coffee fruit extract and green tea. Because green tea, ECGC, the extract from green tea can also increase NAD. Just another one. So if you have turmeric does a little separate thing. Turmeric is a precursor of something called glutathione. Glutathione is our body's biggest antioxidant. It can cross the blood-brain barrier and detox the hell out of your cells. It's awesome. It's right under NAD, but it's right there. So glutathione used to be pretty much my favorite thing to go to before I found out about P5P. But then glutathione was like, you can cross the blood-brain barrier. And I read about research in cancer, chemo, whatever you name it, that they were given glutathione. You hear about those clinics in Mexico. Yeah, they're giving glutathione. They're also giving B17 as well with it. But if I can get my hands on curcumin and put in an IV, I will. I was at the pharmacy this morning where we did our NAD from, and the guy said we're about to get CBD in there. The thing about NAD and all these other weird acronyms that I'm spelling or I'm not spelling out for you is that they basically are designed for receptors throughout the body. Okay, here's another genetic lesson. If you're ready for some more science, I'll lay it on you quick. So here is how inflammation builds in your body to where if NAD is deficient and you have a genetic disorder, this is exactly how it occurs in your brain. Anyone ever heard of glutamate? Okay. You ever heard the term monosodium glutamate? You ever heard the term natural flavors? That's in there. Natural flavors are a clever way of disguising one of the most neuroexcitotoxins out there. They will literally pump a needle into your brain, blow it up, and pop your brain cell. That's what MSG does. That's what aspartame does. Okay? So all the years of the process ingredients doing that, what's going on is this. So aspartame, the derivative of that is aspartic acid. I probably mispronounced that, but go look at your amino acid list again. It's on there. That gets turned into something that eventually gets turned into aspartame, right? If you're getting it through a sugarless gum, what you're doing is aspartame goes into the body and creates glutamate. And it creates more of it. Glutamate is excitatory. What it is a signal, okay? It's a signal in your brain. Remember, everything's checks and balances. A signal that goes to your brain and basically activates the brain cells, makes it excited. The way it does it, it has a system, like a gate, a door, that allows calcium to get into the cell. Now, you know your electrolytes, right? Magnesium, sodium, potassium, all that stuff, they're there in balance. They're there in and out of the cell to keep everything in order, right? Bouncers, checks and balances, right? If calcium goes into your brain cells, it excites the brain cells, and what it does is it gets them all giggly and shit, and then all of a sudden they, boom, they pop. That's what happens. Aspartame, glutamate does that. So when glutamate's going off in the body, in the brain, your brain cells are like freaking out, and they're like, whoa, what's about to happen? We're having fun, but it's about like they took a bunch of Molly and they hadn't drank a bunch of water in like 2 days. You know what's about to happen. Like, it's bad, right? And so then what happens is they pass out and they die off. That's essentially what happens to brain cells. And in fact, that's what Molly does. It's a different type of receptor. It's MDMA going in to activate the NDMA receptor. Glutamate goes and activates that receptor. That's not a good thing, right? It excites your brain to the point where serotonin is great, but all the calcium that's going to your brain pops your brain cell. That's what happens with somebody if they naturally have inflammation in their body and they're at genetic risk because they have an ApoE issue, right? They're producing inflammation in the brain right now because of all the crap they've been eating. If that happens, my question is, how do you turn it off? This is how receptors work. CBD, NAD, whatever. Every receptor has like a key and lock system. NAD is the key, goes into the lock. CBD, the same thing. CBD is laced throughout our entire body from head to toe, even in our brain. And there's different receptors for it. CBD is not a thing. It is literally what we were built for, which is incredible. All right. But you think about things like NAD, it's the same thing, right? So when NAD goes into the system, it's doing good. But it's like glutamate's plugged in. All you're doing is producing inflammatory responses. If you think about a key that you have to turn off, it's almost like, well, turn on this key or push this button, it shuts this one off. The thing that shuts it off is glutamine. Glutamine is the most abundant amino acid in your body. Glutamine is converted to glutamate. I will tell you this. Glutamine is what's in the gut. It's what bodybuilders, the #1 supplement on bodybuilder.com every single year is L-glutamine. Why? Because it helps with muscle retention. It helps with muscle, but at the same time, it lines the gut. It helps patch up the leaky gut, which patches up the leaky brain. Why in the world would this be a bad thing that it can go and be supplemented and it turns into glutamate? It's a great question. Now you're scientists. You're thinking, why? Because is there a deficiency somewhere? Possibly. Because what happens is this. Very beginning, tryptophan goes here. It turns into B3. Then it turns into NAD. If you're deficient in magnesium, zinc, P5P, you genetically have a mutation, or you are basically just causing inflammation, it doesn't go down that pathway. It goes down this pathway. That's the inflammatory pathway. You can measure this by something called the kyanurate pathway. And I'm very proud to say it is the same urine test, if you've been in here, that you've done. It's a marker on that test. It's a metabolite on that test. I can literally see if inflammation is building from all the crap that's going on in your brain. It's incredible because traditional blood work will not tell me that. Somehow I found this test and I'm like, that's awesome. It goes one step further. The kyanurate pathway is the inflammatory pathway from where NAD should be getting its attention. So if tryptophan doesn't go NAD, it goes the chitinure way. But what also happens is this. There's another way that it can be actually converted back to NAD and all this stuff. The chitinure pathway has something else called quinolinic acid. This test is a metabolite of the most chronic of issues. Probably a bold statement about to make, but I'll make it. So ApoE and homocysteine are the two hallmarks of Alzheimer's research when it comes to diagnosis. It's in Nader's neurology book. I can show you when I get home. Another factor I would probably look at is probably the quinolinic pathway. Because if this pathway is activated from being a derivative of the inflammatory tryptophan pathway, you have the genetic grounds for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and all that stuff too. And it is not a test that you would normally hear about. But if this test is elevated, you have inflammation in your brain, and I got to basically detox the heck out of you. NAD would be one way to do it, because guess what? The quinolinic acid, when it's elevated in this test, it means that NAD's deficient. I found that out today. I went back in my research, saw I was like, that's cool. We have a test now that can measure NAD. I couldn't do it before, but I knew we were onto it. So those are the things you have to look at, and hopefully in modern medicine, that this gets out to the idea in 5-10 years, the neurologists and endocrinologists and all the people that are looking at inflammation, they include inflammatory tests and metabolites and biomarkers, in addition with the nutrition and your genetic factors to see really what's going on with your brain. At that point, you talk about things like CTE and Alzheimer's and all that being more lumped into something more just cognitive decline, neurodegeneration, which is the same thing. So, run over. Cool. All right, Bob, lost my voice. So, questions?
I think some people might know about that as well, correct?
That's a good point. So natural including glutamate, remember, checks and balances. Every time that you get glutamate in your system, it has to have a minor version of it. Because remember, it helps let the calcium into the cell. So when you're contracting muscles, you are releasing calcium into your cells, which is very true, but like you can't have too much. What happens is if you have that genetic risk where you overload the production of glutamate receptors, like actually attaching, or you produce, by bringing it in, yeah, it goes overload.
I guess I was more saying foods that actually.
The foods?
Like
Grapes and sardines.
So, yeah, that it's probably through a lot of citrus, and then there's probably, I would probably say maybe certain fermented foods, and I'd probably say more, I hate to say it, but more of the soy based and all that. I know, man. I know, man. I know. But it's true. It's because it's GMO.
So if you eat sardines, does that mean you're not vegan?
Yeah. Unfortunately, but I'd let you pass though. Yeah. Yeah. I love sardines because, think about it. If the person had the risk of where they're basically eating glutamate, would it be ruled out by the idea that they're eating sardines with it on top of it? Because that DHA is going to go into the brain and kind of nourish the brain, but I'd say, well, it's nourishing whatever you're putting in it. So if the glutamate's still going in because you're still eating all that stuff, then it's like, that's why I'm just kind of just eliminate it, right? Don't even risk it. If you don't know the genetic genes that are mutated or whatever, just don't risk it.
It doesn't help you.
It doesn't help either. 9%, remember, the normal variant is 9%, and still you can develop it. So. Yeah, well, we talked about what mercury and the toxin levels and all that stuff as well. Know the source of where your fish is coming from, just like anything else. There's fish hatcheries just outside of Austin. That fish farm will have 50% of its fish die from basically swimming in their own feces and their own bacteria, and then whatever's left over is canned and then shipped off to the local supermarkets. So wild caught is a thing. I mean, and even with wild caught with salmon, you can go look at it for that as well. That's a whole other division of what it means to actually wild caught salmon, right? Which is really weird. So once again, it goes to the idea of eat. If it came from nature, you're probably okay, but you can't even control it. I mean, I tell everyone the last thing that you can really control is the music you listen to in your car, right? Other than that, I would love to build all the big, tall, above ground gardens out there. How do I know that a bee or a bird's not going to come over, bring some Roundup with them? I mean, it's true. We had our beekeepers say there's no such thing as an organic bee or honey anymore. Incredible,
Canada.
Right?
There's a place called.
The queens can go 20 miles.
Yeah. So what what people that are like looking at anti-aging, that thing, they've been studying that for a while, and that's kind of, they've been touting it. And I think even there was a research article that gained attention last year in Times. It was from a Harvard professor that said it's the fountain of youth. I didn't say it, he said it. That's his words. In this Time magazine article, so you have a bunch of people texting and say, hey, why should I get it? Well, like I said before, the best way I know how to get it is this. There's pills that are out there. They have to convert over. Yeah.
So what does Apple have it?
Apple?
Because I'll tell you what, I've heard from 2 different sources, not that, but I was wondering if it had it because it's so healing if it's organic. And one source said that if you eat that at the end of a meal, an apple.
I worry more about the rest. I would say the benefits of apples probably outweigh. They're probably maybe a little derivative of NAD. Could probably be the seed. I'm guessing probably has something to do with it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But apple cider vinegar is like one of the healthiest things you can put in your body too. Like it has. If you go look up benefits of apple cider vinegar, there's like hundreds of things. It's even dog shampoo. Like if they have fleas and all that stuff, like it's just. So I know people probably in this room that take a shot of apple cider vinegar a day. Yeah.
That would burn so bad.
We have apple cider vinegar.
You really do it.
Can you mention where you get your eggs from? If somebody's listening, how smart you are. And eggs are great. Are you getting them from your neighbor's chicken coop, or are you getting them from?
When I can, I get them from a local farm of a friend, basically, that brings it to us.
Okay,
They're not even
yeah.
needed to be refrigerated. But you're right, I don't get to always have them. So cage-free, pasture-raised, those are your best options. And I feel fortunate enough that most of the supermarkets that we shop at, they do locally source. H-E-B, shout out to H-E-B, my favorite store in the world. They basically locally source too, which is pretty cool. I don't know everything because I can't watch it because one of our good friends who's not here basically said, do you know how many steps there are from the farm to your plate to get that food there? Too many. Zero waste and all that stuff is a great thing, but I don't know how to grow food.
I also said the biggest food allergies is eggs, and a lot of people aren't even cognizant of the fact that the eggs they're eating are giving them inflammation.
And see, here's my thing on it. One of the things I've learned in the past year is lectins. Last year I did a gut diet. It basically has been continuing, and I've removed lectins from my diet because I know they're anti-nutrients and can patch the holes in or not patch the holes, but create the holes in the gut lining in the brain. That's found in nightshade vegetables, nuts, and seed oils, right? And so I don't want to cause leaky brain, even with other stuff that I can't control that's going in there. And so, some of the other things that I've looked at as far as removing, your diet can just, continue to go down the rabbit hole.
All you're eating is horseradish.
Yeah, but see, I refuse to just do that.
I know.
So, but it's funny because the eggs, I look at wonderful things like eggs, and they're so good for you. Like the yolk is one of the healthiest things it has. It has chromium in there for your insulin. It has zeaxanthin, right, for your eyes and antioxidants and your hairs. And it has, choline. It has choline. Here's the thing. All right. So when it talks about your brain health, all right, the number one thing that I've always thought of when it comes to brain, when you supplement, if you can't get your nutrients, DHA is the way to go when it comes to fish oil, hands down. If you need to get a prenatal find, if you can't find it, you come to us. We got a DHA that knock your socks off. It's awesome. Or eat a bunch of sardines on top of that too. The other thing I look at too is, you can look at CoQ10 and alpha lipoic acid, NAC. All those things are great. Glutathione, NAD's great as well. Phosphatidylcholine it's in its own field. So when you have the brain cells, they're basically firing. You have brain cells. Remember the ones that are dying off? In order to fight that and combat that, you want those cells to talk to one another and basically say, hey, there's this guy that's coming over here. He's going to be bad news. Don't let him in. Don't let him come over here. Attack him, right? And so if you're signaling that, you need the conduction to go far because you got to tell other places that might be where the memory's at to where they put the words together. Because if those cells degenerate, those degenerate too. And then that's when the phosphatidylcholine causes the electricity current to go from cell to cell to keep those cells communicating. Choline causes the synapses. The phosphatidyl cushions the cells in order to receive the message. Phosphatidylcholine or phosphatidylserine is the way to go. Brain candy.
Bring it back.
Soy and sunflower.
So scrambled
Sunflower.
Yeah.
We would have to check the source, but I think it says,
DHA is.
the DHA you could do algae, but the choline, I think we could probably get a vegan option. Yeah.
All right, John.
Cheers.
So,
We made it happen.
To express the gene, to get to the point where the gene is expressing differently.
that's a great question. So at this point right now, you have to basically direct it with cofactors, if that makes sense. Right now, if that gene,
So you have to direct it every day.
yeah, because the gene, you can't change it.
And how do you know how to direct it?
You will know based off the symptoms and then whatever your labs are saying. So like, for example, if you measure that kinase pathway, like in that urine sample, and it's lowering, then you know you're basically shifting it in that other direction. So that's a measurement. And it's interesting because we've done this blood test with hormones,
Yeah.
MTHFR factor.
Yeah, so that's what I was asking.
Yeah, so here's the thing. The methylation factor is it controls neurotransmitter production, antioxidant production, ATP production. If that gene,
Detoxification, right?
yes, so if that gene is off, one of those things is off, we go. Years ago, functional medicine doctors used to say methyl B9 and methyl B12 should solve all. That's not the case because it's only one cofactor in like hundreds. Like SAMe, which is our bliss, that's the #1 methyl donor in that cycle. So if you're deficient in that, your cycle might not be cranking out your neurotransmitters. So then to me, I'm like, this is like they have no SAMe, right? So you need punishment as well. And so you can look at those labs and give things like that and see if the labs change. Then that's how we do. So everything we do with those labs are solely through because vitamins biochemically are how we train.
It's gonna take a while for your cell to but once you stop eventually
Yeah.
Yeah.
So most
we all did it.
so like as an I know you still like what we didn't account for here, hormones regulate NAD cycles and the circadian rhythm. So it's not where like because your gut actually has so these are leading up brain and all that stuff. And so when the hormone aspect
yeah, you get so the way that
they got to the TPO and it was
I mean, it's because your body isn't used to that.
like,
Holy shit, I'm thinking brain. Why is it so high? Because I really need to. So imagine, yeah, imagine your body. Yeah, because instead of like eating small and that's like you feel yeah. We were, I know you're a dude not say that, but it's really good. Yeah, came from pretty much. I got you know, I literally well, just save for another time.
Oh, what about I get to the next one? All I'm thinking is just like, everybody. Well, that was loved it.
I think that was like a 30-year event or so.
I'm down to check it out. I'm looking at this. You know where I live? There's like that quarter down, so if you drive it. No, no, I'm gonna live in a different building, same complex, same. I don't care, bro. I actually don't care. I'm there. I treat my people over. I barely know anyone. One that's like finally one place. I would love to go to yeah. I don't care about those. Oh, bro. I think the lowest I do is like $40. My place is really? Man, like, bro, no, I'm with you on that. Like, for 12.90 or lower, that's small space. Yeah, dude, do it, yeah. Kind of struggle going genetics on this one.
Now I just see people like I just want to give you a look at my Netflix.
I really miss you guys so much. You're resonating weird. It is. I actually
rebuild your own house.
You might be all the same every Thursday are gathering tomorrow.
Take your telomeres back. Yeah, like if you're supposed to collect margin compliance, using like NAD and something, they're taking their like biological age at the like the 20% as their age and like reverse it by like 20 years. Like margin bias is telomeres. If you look at him, don't show that he's like 52 years old. They show that he's like 28 or something. All the stuff he's been doing.
I went to I know, dude. It's a pretty patient. When I went there, I realized I was like, it's just my was showering, I just a loofah. I'm not sure. I was like, what a little bit. Like, I know. I'm moving. Oh no. Dude, I gotta walking like just driving that looks so badass. Yeah. I saw maybe you wanted to negative.
I was trying to so you can have kind of every time I was dodging, I'm dodging stress. I also have
I know it's sucks. I know. I have my rations on the side. Obviously. It's literally, and I even have the ones to be like, all right,
I didn't feel like I wanted to do
Yeah, it's cool.
yeah, you look like so I'm doing like adult now I know so now I'm just eating everything right, you're you have the size. So I didn't know the to get size. I thought it was like if you just show I thought if you just show up to the gym and you just eat a regular diet, and it's not true at all. It was really frustrating. Yeah, always an accent. Because you're like late at night, dude, I know it. It makes you feel like you're like a fucking car break. Like I don't feel satiated. Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. But like I know how to do it. I know like I've never done it. So that's what I'm saying, but like I'm still doing exactly the same. I haven't been doing it. And that's like I like to say yeah, that's up to me. Right, and for you, it's like I think they were hopeful to engage.
No, same. You sound good. Oh shit.
To show people the way, like I'm always leaving like so that when I do like he understands what I'm saying, and it's factual, and like I'm like it's okay.
That's been there too. You're like, yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. No, at least you're doing that. Really? Really? It wasn't even that. It was that like I have so many. I want so for me, even getting into like that's a question. I guess like is that when you're down the road, like I said, down the road. Both young girls. But I want them. Yes, okay. Her perception, yeah, I know, but my hope is an actually different way. That's how it's a little different.
And maybe that's Saturday. But I also know
Right, that's not normal. Yeah. My mind is blown.
It's the same sort of thing where it's just like, shit, what's this? There's no like.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like just doing. Like, but that's the thing. In my mind, I'm like that would estimate. Like I'm not looking to anything. Oh, the regression. Like who I'm like fucking with, literally and figuratively, symbolically. Right? Like, that's showing myself to me as a machine. I'm like, the guy who needs and she's in it. I'm like, you want it easy. He had it on her the whole time. Yeah, but the thing is, I don't care. I don't care if this determines quality. It determines only. Like for me, yeah. That honestly, I don't care. You know, I learned to not get thought of that. And it kind of got on me a little bit, but I realized it just actually happened to the place. I was like, wait, reality helps me solve this. True, capital T. It was like, if that was true, I could. That's a good fact, right? If that was true, who knows? Maybe, dude, switching on a lot. And so, there are no rules in this game. There are, like, you say, I just don't know. I just don't know. Maybe, who knows? I don't know. Maybe that's it. Who knows? So, one, I'm not trying to shit on the guy. And it's not a comparison. It's not a comparison. It's more like, I think the kind of character he showed so far. I'm like, hey, okay, if that's what she's it's not, I'm not comparing or betterment. It's more like a reflection of her. Like, and that's cool. Like, somebody's always not a better way. Right? There is like, yeah. Then she's also like a little kid, and like anyone giving her attention is male. Like, she had a dog. That's really cool. But in my mind, I'm just like when we were dating, you were so mature. I think it was time. I have
so serious.
I wanted to think that I'm being weird. Like, because I actually give it. I don't know. I care about what you think still. And then with all this shit, I think I can be
Yeah. In the rocking chair? Yeah. Okay, hey, I will be here after.
I want to physically culminate that.
All right. Yeah, man. Thanks for coming, man.
Thank you so much. Yes. Yes. It can't happen unless there's a committed, like, intention to that person. Like, yeah. But we have to learn how to like there's a kind of thing, at least I do it. Yeah. So my thoughts are like,
I know, that's
like,
what
let's see how it's that's the only way through.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Like with friends, reality is like you just can't always do what you want. And that's okay. So what all things to do in my mind?
Yes.
You have to go through that. And then you have money. See, I need to learn. I want to learn. Really? Yeah, it's a lot of 6 years of cheap versions of that for me. No shit. Yeah, you learn to use it. I think I'm getting to that point. I was telling my mom that, like, She ended up where I'm like, yeah, no, we're good now. I don't have time.
Yeah, so you're just like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now it's just like,
Yeah. It comes a couple times, but like during
but then
the
it just,
stressful
but then it kind of goes away.
I'm just like, shit. Actually, this is a little less bad because there's like low hair on that. I might start doing this arm more actually to the test. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, thank you again.
Second, no, you're good.
Yeah, so. Does that mean you can, that's the thing, some people are in the place where, I listened to this guy, he posted this, he was like, should you be dating if you're broke? And he had to reply, he's like, okay, where's broke? Like, do you have like good credit? And can you get needs for something? Leverage, you have liquid cash? No, God, no, I'm just saying, no, what I'm just saying in general, like, because the thing is, like, we're kind of broke. Like, we're not. Not anymore. Well, it's you're making like 2 to 35 to 45, depending on clients. It's very fluid. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I know. Yeah, I'm with you. So, okay, so that's you said something like, I know I'm with you, bro. No, and the thing is, like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, wait, it's liquid cash, right? Let's say we have cash, we're doing well, but I'm like, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, like, you can have cash, but cash moves. Like, it means if it's not used this month, it's for next month, right? So you need to be ahead with cash. So do we have like savings and shit? Yeah, like you don't want to fuck with somebody that, yeah. You want to tag along? Yeah, you're right. See, that's a yeah. I think the thing is, yeah, I think instead of obviously with recency, me, I'm like, I don't even want to have recency. I think so. Bro, I'm a philologist, bro. I think no, it is a word. Philology is the study of words and the root of the words. Philology is. But I'm like, dude, right now I would like to stay, but before I like find myself getting into that investing, when I do like to just like help give like. I do everyone friends. I want to do that, right? Like, it's just so that we can continue to inspire that. I mean, where that intention is. Yeah, dude. That's what it is. That's what we want. That's what we want. You're giving. Yeah. That's the curse of a light worker, bro. You give and you don't get much. Yeah. So it's just like, and the one thing that does with us is that like that pattern. It's very pastor-esque, not just from my experience, but it's like you do this thing, you orate, you give, and it's huge. Like you're just spraying cups, but then you come home and you just need that one drop for that one person, and like you said, and that's a real system. It's a real actual system. But yeah, we don't have. So, get the hell out of here, bro. Look at all this cut, dude. Dude. Bro, I'm saying, you're looking like you're losing. Dude, you're losing your cash. Bro, what's that like? He's like flexing here and yo, what's that like? Yeah, what's that like? It's half raising out. I haven't either. Running, squats. If you do everything appropriately, everything will grow appropriately. I found out my medialis is like imbalanced. You know, it's like attached to my quads. So I need to like keep, what's the space? And that Michael was like, I was like, yes, Friday too. Yeah, what time? A lot of people. Dude, I'm gonna be there at 1. I think. This guy gets it. Or 1:30 for people. Yeah. Okay. Wait, what? On Friday. I had an appointment with him too. 1 to 2:45. He's next level. I needed to. I woke up like 2 days. I had here from all the spear, all the everything I'm doing, and it would be like small motion like this, and it would feel sharp. He got rid of it. Just loosening it. Michael Arbuckle. Yeah. It's an Iron Forge.
Yeah, I know I'm looking at the time. Which I appreciate much too, because it is.
No, yeah. There you go. So he knows that he is like CJ with business, like Scott and Delgado. He's like MSW John Baldo. He's like me with output, you with photography. I'm not joking, seriously. He's that guy. He's the Eric of Foot Spas.
Oh, you know how you found him?
Yeah, he said that. Yeah, I see him at goals, dude.
Yeah, that's what
He told me he sees me. Yeah, and he always said that he saw me. He sees me always on the mat, and I was like, damn straight, dude. Before this shit. Yeah. No, for real, bro. Because it takes an hour to get to it.
I know.
No, chill, bro. Chill. No, I'm over there laying on a dumbbell, dude. Like right in here. It sucks, but he's a good guy. He knows the body so well, dude. And so when you show up, no, that's the curse again. The curse of the light worker, dude. I'm telling you, there's these patterns, man. That sometimes the right thing is the hard thing, which is also very easily misled and not found. It's true, dude. It's always there. Michael Arbuckle.